I've gotten a lot of questions about how I plan my international trips. So here's a quick overview. You basically break it down into 6 topics, or at least I am for today. Choosing your destination, researching your destination, looking for lodging, at least in the first city that you're going to visit, communications, and transportation. Choosing your destination. It's based on your interests, the cost, and how much money you want to spend or can spend, and safety. Research. Research the cities you're interested in visiting. Know the no-go zones. Where are the local sites, museums, and things of interest to you? And where is the best place for food and nightlife? And for me, where's the local mercado so I can go buy my fresh fruits and vegetables like I'm at a giant farmer's market? If you're going someplace like Mexico City or going to Bogota, Colombia, or even Lima, Peru, you need to know the neighborhoods that you probably should stay out of. You don't necessarily have to stay in a tourist zone, but if you don't speak the local language, it probably would be to your advantage. Lodging. Where's the location? What's going to be convenient to the sites you want to see, and maybe the food and nightlife that you're into? Sometimes it's not an easy mesh, especially if safety's a concern. Some places are great to visit in daytime, but rather dangerous in the evening after the sun sets. As well as, what's your cost range? Where can you afford to stay? And finally, what's the length of your stay? If you're staying for a long time, you might want to rent a room with Booking or Hostels World and just book it for a few days, walk around town, and find a nice apartment to rent long term. Sometimes it's cheaper to rent an apartment for a 2-week stay, just paying for a month rather than pay by the night at a hotel. I've seen places in Guatemala where it was cheaper to rent for a month than it was to stay for less than a week at a hotel, at the same hotel. So do a little research, find out, walk around. You speak the local language, it'll be even easier. Communications, often overlooked by many. The plans that T-Mobile, Verizon, and others give you, they're not so great. They average from $5 to $10. I have noticed that sometimes that $10 charge turns to a $20 charge. So you might think that's reasonable. However, in Latin America, for $10 in most cases, you can get a lot better coverage and more gigs of bandwidth for $10, maybe $20 at worst. Pro tip, be careful about buying a SIM chip at the airport. You're paying someone to speak in your language, and they're going to sell you a really bad tourist chip, which if you're only staying for a week, maybe you don't mind. I know that I can go to any convenience store or go to the Claro store, the Movistar store, et cetera, depending on where you're at. But those are 2 of the more notable companies that I have used and liked. It's going to be something like $7 or so in Peru for a whole month, maybe $10 in Ecuador. It kind of varies. So keep that in mind. You do need an unlocked phone to do this. So if you're one of those people who lives in debts and makes payments, your cell phone might be locked. You'll have to consult with your provider and see if you get unlocked. For those of you considering Latin America, know that WhatsApp is a really great way to communicate, both with your friends back home and with anyone you're dealing with in Latin America. WhatsApp is free in Latin America. It does not count against your bandwidth. Facebook is also free in most of these countries. WhatsApp's the #1 way to communicate in Latin America, and also with a lot of my friends that are hardcore travelers. Mapping apps are great. Google Maps works good, and MapMe works awesome. Even offline, it can use GPS in your phone. So get you some mapping apps of your choice. Those are my 2 recommendations. And then download maps of the places you're going to visit. Using Google Maps, you can download the entire country pretty easy and small. Map.me goes into great detail, and you'll have to download individual cities and areas as you see fit. You get to select your own. So depending on how much memory your phone has, you can choose the poison that suits you best. Transportation. I like to see the countries I visit, so I prefer the bus. Sometimes it's even cheaper to take a plane than take the bus. So if you're pressed for time and you don't really want to see the landscape and how the people really live, do consider taking an airplane. It will save you lots of time. Buses could encounter foul weather, accidents, and other delays that are unexpected. But don't worry, if one happens, vendors will arrive swiftly. And if it's something the locals know about, they might be there waiting. I have experienced this and ate some really good street food in Peru, for example. It's not so bad, especially if you're not in a hurry. Slow travel rules in this case, if you're doing the bus. Really, buses are quite cheap in most countries, and for the most part, I found the buses to be far nicer than the Greyhound buses and trailways of the United States. So if you want to travel by bus, you can. The more you spend, the nicer the ride will probably be. Cheaper you spend, well, the more primitive it gets. For small shots, you might be doing shuttles or maybe collectivos. You have public transportation within the cities, which is always quite cheap. Mass transportation in Latin America is really advanced compared to what you've experienced in the United States. If you want to figure out your bus schedule is or what routes are available, Redbus online is a great resource. You can buy tickets online, but generally speaking, that is not necessary, nor is it necessarily more desirable. Different countries will have different amounts of scheduling. More popular destinations will have frequent buses leaving. Places off the beaten path might only have one or two to choose, or maybe even have to adjust your schedule by the days that trip is offered. This varies by country and destination. The hardest part of bus transportation is probably getting your Uber or your taxi to take you to the terminal, and make sure it's the correct terminal if you're in a large city, because some cities have a north and south terminal, and the trips leaving from there are either going south or going north, so it matters which one you go to. So when you get your taxi, make sure you know which terminal you need to go to, and make sure you can express that to your taxi driver. If you're challenged in language, maybe you need to write this down. Odds are your taxi driver can probably read. I hope you guys enjoyed this video about trip planning. If you got questions, leave them in the comments. If you really liked this or found it useful, give it a like and give it a share. And subscriptions are always welcome. And cut. I knew that was going to happen. Bonus section for those of you planning to go kayaking. Well, I'm not going to show you the whitewater, or I have in the past, but I don't so much now. This is my advice. If you want to come down to Ecuador and paddle the rowdy rivers, you should already be paddling show at high water. I read that as more than $2,000. Personally, I think closer to $3,000 will give you a good taste of what Ecuador and some other places have to offer.